Hey Mike, good to
Hi,
see you.
Heather. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So thanks for joining me on this Tuesday.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. So I heard from a little bird that you are going, is it on a vacation?
Yeah, I've got a vacation coming up. I'd rather not announce the exact dates, but yeah, but I'll
Cool. And
but
that's why we're doing it today.
yeah,
Well, I hope you have fun.
yeah. So there's not going to be a live stream next week. Um,
Okay.
so, but I will tell you guys all about it when I get back.
Sweet. Looking forward to that. Well, let's get started. Do you want to start off with a viewer question, a forum question, or some other questions?
Let's see. Do we have any view? Are there any viewers here left? I mean,
We we do. We have a viewer question from Eric.
okay.
Eric 777.
Uh-huh.
He says, "If I'm playing slots and get into a bonus, can I remove my player's card so that it doesn't show my winnings? Most casino comps on losses, so my loss would be more. Is that correct?"
Yeah, this is a commonly known trick, especially in video poker too. For example, you get dealt four to a royal, you pull your card out. So if you get that royal, your thinking is that it's not going to show on your win-loss record. And the reason you do this is casinos absolutely do comp based on losses. The more you lose, the better they comp. So it's to the player's advantage if he can falsify his his overall win loss. And this was a very commonly done trick in the 90s, 2000s. And then casinos started to be able to respond to this. And the way that, and generally the way, and I think the way it works now is that once you put your card in and make a bet, it's locked in. And if you pull your card out, the machine is still going to remember to credit what happened with that to your account. So I think I can say that it doesn't work anymore, but I'm not going to say that 100% because maybe it's some older casinos that have older machines. Maybe it still works. But a problem is the player never really knows if it's working or not, except if you ask your host, what does my win-loss for the year look like thus far? And let's say you knew it before and then you just hit a royal flush and you ask him and he says it stayed roughly the same, then you might know that the card pulling was worked if you pulled your card before getting the royal. So I have heard so many discussions about this amongst video poker player, whether card pulling works at the Palms and the Gold Coast and the Stratosphere and you name it. And they would talk a long time about whether at which places it worked and which it did not. And yeah, to make a long story short, I think at most places it does not work anymore. But if it does work, it's a good idea to pull your card out if you get into a bonus round.
So my
No
question,
moral problems with it.
yeah. My question on the matter would be if you want a big jackpot, they look at the cameras, they look back and see, the winnings. So when they see you pull the card out and when they know that's what you're doing.
You would still, if you hit a W2G jackpot of 1,200 or more, you would get it no matter what. I mean, the machine will lock up and you will not get your money until they do the paperwork. And if you were to run out of the casino, I guess you could do that, but then you wouldn't get your money. And I think the casino wouldn't like it if I think they might know if you pulled your card out when they pay the jackpot because I think it might send some kind of an alert. I don't know. I don't know too much about it, and the casinos aren't motivated to tell you what they know. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I haven't heard anyone talk about this in a long time, which makes me think it doesn't work anymore.
Okay. So, forum viewer, miscellaneous, what would you like to do?
Texted me a question.
Ooh, good.
Okay. Mike, do you think Vegas is headed towards another shutdown considering two online news reports within the last day? The first entitled Employees at 5 Las Vegas Restaurants on and off the strip test positive for COVID-19. And the other, Nevada sets new record for the highest single day coronavirus cases. Well, I mean, 5 cases in all of the city doesn't sound that bad to me. So I don't think that there's going to be another Nevada shutdown. Although there was one in Arizona, they re-shut down what few casinos they have there. Yeah, so I predict we will not see another shutdown here in Nevada, but I don't deny that we may go through a second wave. In fact, we may already be early in that wave now. But I think it could kind of be expected with so much more moving about now that we're reopened the casinos. And I think people are just getting cabin fever and just taking their chances more and getting out there.
Yeah, I think cabin fever is really starting to hit hard. So
yeah, I do too.
We have a comment in here that says your beard is looking really nice, like how it's coming out of the thing. Very cool. And then I have an anonymous question. So this person does not want to be known. This question is, what is the average area of a rectangle inscribed within a circle with a radius of 10, in which all corners of the rectangle are touching the circumference of the circle and not protruding beyond the edge of the circle?
Okay. That's a good question. I don't know why this asker has so much secrecy about it. That's too difficult to do off the top of my head. It's going to just involve the way I would do it, the way I would interpret the randomly is I would just pick, say, one corner of the rectangle at 12 o'clock, and then I would pick the opposite side of that diagonal randomly somewhere else in the rest of the circle. And then it would be a matter of doing the calculus, and who knows, that might get to a messy integral or not. I think I would need to get my hands dirty with the math, but I think I will just ask that on Wizard of Vegas. So yeah, look later today for me to ask myself that question on Wizard of Vegas, and we'll go through it. But yeah, good question.
Now, Wizard of Vegas, that's a really great forum to go on to talk with you and other people who are just brilliant at this about math questions and game questions. Yeah. So can you tell people a little bit more about the forum? Like, what's the address? Do they have to subscribe? Like, can you tell us a little more about it?
Sure. So I started Wizard of Vegas, I think, in 2009. It's wizardofvegas.com. And it was meant to be a resource for just Las Vegas, as well as a forum. And I really wanted to start a forum. For one reason is, before the forum, I just got bombarded with questions, gambling questions. And I like to be a nice guy and answer them all, but I just didn't have the time. And so I created the forum as a place to say, look, please ask your questions here. And I visit the forum a lot. I answer a lot of questions, but there's a lot of other very bright people there, really smart people, especially mathematically speaking, that also help answer these questions. And I've seen people even like post the rules for some casino game they invented, and somebody will analyze the math for free.
Oh, wow.
So you really have a lot of bright minds there. So yeah, I would say Wizard of Vegas is my second most successful website after Wizard of Odds, and I participate there a lot. And it's the easiest way to get my attention is to send me a private message, but please don't send me gambling questions via private message. Please just post them in the forum. And yeah, it has thousands of members. I think it's had well over 1 million posts, and it's a pretty active forum. And it has its issues as well, like any forum does. But I administer it and police it as best I can.
Cool. So if anyone has any hard questions where it might take more than like a couple minutes to answer, definitely go to the forum, check it out, become a member, ask the question there, and you'll get a huge range of answers.
Yeah, and we love just general math questions there. It doesn't need to be about gambling. We love to challenge each other with math questions. In fact, just yesterday, I posted on The Price is Right. They had this game called Then and Now. In fact, I still have notes on it here on my desk. But it's a game where if you understand the rules and game theory, you can lock in a win without knowing the price of anything. Mm-hmm. So I challenge the readers to come up with the strategy how to do it. And and we had it. And then I posted my solution, and that one wasn't so complicated. But that's a good example of the kind of non-gambling thing we like to talk about.
Sounds cool. Love it. So we have another question here. Mm-hmm. It's from an anonymous person, we'll say. And what do you know about advantage play and card counting and blackjack?
I could talk about that all day long.
And they want to know, have you done it in person?
Okay, well, I'll just answer that part.
Okay,
the first main advantage play I got into was definitely card counting. And I did that through my early 20s. When I moved to Baltimore in 1992, that kind of ended the card counting. And then I was in Baltimore for 10 years. And then when I moved back, I noticed that everyone was talking about video poker. And so I got into video poker. And this was when video poker was still fairly decent. It was still worth playing it for the mail. So I got into video poker. I never got into it like totally in the deep end. I just, I would say I dabbled with it. And then I got really into sports betting. I mean, much deeper than I ever did video poker or blackjack. And I did all just kinds of tricks in sports betting, things you can do without knowing anything about sports. You don't need to know, for example, in football, whether the ball is full of air or feathers. You just went by these mathematical tricks. And I did that for like 10 years. But then the plays just started to get bad. Maybe I wrote about them too much. I don't know. But definitely the odds on things like parlay cards and teasers got worse. And I think that more people were doing what I was doing, creating more competition. And then I also, at the same time, I overlapped as I started playing more tournaments. And the idea with tournaments is casinos will invite their best players to play free entry tournaments where, say it's a Baccarat tournament, they might have $300,000 in total prize money, and they might invite 100 people. So assuming no rebuys, that would be a value of $3,000 a person if everyone had equal skill level. But I'd like to think that my skill level was probably about 3 times as good as the average person, making my value $9,000 to get into this tournament. But you don't just get invited for nothing. You have to give them free play. So I would grind through low advantage, legitimate play like in Pai Gow Tiles or video poker to get these tournament entries. But then my name got passed around as an advantage player, and that put the kibosh on that. So yeah, but sadly, since that happened, I really haven't been that big of a gambler. I just don't see anything that's worth my time anymore. A lot of people that I know are big on advantage play and slot machines, but that's not the kind of advantage play that interests me. That involves just a lot of trolling around the casinos looking for machines left in a good state, which I just don't find enjoyable. So,
well, do you have any gambling you do find enjoyable?
I still like sports betting. Okay. I still like anything that's a good challenge, and so, but something has to be worth my time for me to do it.
Okay, cool. Next question. So this is from Joey, and he says, do you feel proud when your tubers either quote you or recommend your website? Your YouTubers.
Uh-huh. I absolutely am proud when people recommend the site, however it may be. And I appreciate good comments people leave for me. And yeah, um, so yeah, I am very proud, and I think that respect among your peers is the highest compliment you can get. And so so yeah, I really appreciate when people say nice things about me or my sites.
Cool. Well, your website's really awesome, and
Thanks.
I'm agreeing with him, and I'm saying that too. So the next one is from Twist, and Twist says, "Do you think cryptocurrency will be accepted in Vegas soon, within the next 5 years?"
I predict not.
Mm-hmm.
Why, you might ask? Well, I will say that at the Golden Gate, you can buy. You can pay for non-gambling things like hotel rooms in Bitcoin, but I think that it will smack too much of money laundering, and I don't see the Gaming Control Board or any level of government signing off on that. So I am
Okay.
bearish on that.
Okay. And Twist also has another question. Do you play the stock market? And if so, do you have any tips?
I definitely have a lot of money in the market.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it is in just an S&P 500 index fund. However, I do have, I would say, about 20% of it directly in stocks that I've picked. And I don't claim to be any kind of a genius when it comes to picking stocks. I will say, and who knows, I might be really wrong on this, but around April, when things were practically a ghost town here in Vegas and all the casino stocks got beaten down really badly, I bought some Boyd Gaming. Why Boyd, you might ask? I just like the company. I like the way they treat their players. I think that they offer a good value. I like the way they're run. I've known people at the Gold Coast, and I think that they think the right way about being in the gaming business. And so that's why I have a lot of respect for that company. I previously owned MGM and the Wynn, and I've watched those. Gaming stocks are always a roller coaster, and I've watched those go way down, and a lot of people sold. But I am holding. I continue to have faith, and I never sold them. I just held on to them. So, but don't follow my advice on this. I really don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm just basically make stock picks with my heart.
Sounds good. Next up is from Anne. Hey, Anne. Good to see you.
Hi, Anne.
And Anne says, can you explain the difference between the house edge and element of risk?
Okay, so let's take a game like Ultimate Texas Hold'em. Maybe that's a bad example. Let's use something simpler like 3-card poker. So the house advantage is the ratio of money you can expect to lose to the initial bet, which on the anti-bet I think is 3.37%. However, if it's not a very good estimator of the value you get from the game, because about 63% of the time you're raising in that game, so you're getting a lot more money on the table. So if you want to know the value of the game, which I think should be measured as how much you expect to lose to how much you bet, then you would look at how much you bet on the ante plus the raise, which is about 1.6 units, and that waters down the house advantage to about 2%. So, and this is especially true in a game like Ultimate Texas Hold'em, where there's a lot of back raising going on. And it also, with the house advantage, you have to wonder, is the house advantage relative to just the ante bet or the ante and the blind bet, which are both required bets? It's both of them look at your loss in the numerator, but with the house edge, the denominator is the initial bet, and with the element of risk, it's the average bet, including any raising that you do.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Next up is from Dane, and this is a pretty easy one. Do you believe 2020 is the death of buffets in Las Vegas, or will they live on?
I think they'll live on.
Yeah.
Somehow Vegas without buffets. What's a good comparison to make? It's like New York without Broadway shows. And we're going to get past this eventually. I think eventually we'll find a cure, and and the buffets will reopen.
Okay.
That's my prediction. Could be wrong. And we have some Wizard of Vegas questions, which we should get to at some point.
You want to do that?
Okay. So.
Okay. Next.
Can you see me?
I'm sorry?
Can you still see me?
Yep.
Okay. So Odious Gambit asks, have you ever heard of Juneteenth? Do you think it will become a de facto holiday, official holiday, or forgotten next year? So I think I only barely heard of it before this year. Of course, this year it's was all over the news. I predict that it will not become a holiday. I predict that it's going to become kind of like Kwanzaa, where it has a difficult time gaining traction, and people will struggle to get people to remember it year after year. And I'm not sure if it was asked, but I personally oppose adding any new holidays unless we get rid of an old one. So I would have no problem with, say, trading it for Martin Luther King's birthday. So yeah, that's my position on that.
Okay. I hope they add it. I would love it if that was a holiday. It should be.
Expand on why?
It should be. It should be a holiday. Like, it's the fact that it's not. I don't know why. There's a lot of reasons. I'll tell you some of them after the live stream.
Okay.
But the next question is from US Paper Games. And he says, will you please rethink the anonymous question? No calculus required. And then he says he's been trying to simplify it further, but he only got it that far. Do you know what that is on the screen? Because I don't know math, and that looks so foreign to me.
That's the equation of a heart, otherwise known as a cardio. Well, a heart is not exactly the same as a cardioid, but it's similar. Uh-huh. So I think that is the equation of a cardioid, if I remember correctly. No, if there's some simple trick to this question, it's not coming to me right now.
Okay.
I don't want to waste the live stream discussing that too much.
No worries. Next up is Matteo. I'm trying to write a paper on true count and house edge. Currently, I am mentioning basic strategy for 6 decks, finding the house edge, and then graphing the true count versus the house edge. Do you have any advice?
How shall I answer that? I think you might be looking at it wrong. How shall I put this? The house edge at any given point is going to depend on what the true count is, but the player doesn't necessarily, there are blackjack books that show you the house advantage according to the true count, and you can see that it's very correlated. But, if you want to create that graph yourself, I think there's no way. I think I would just do it by random simulation. I should tell you that you wouldn't be breaking any new ground with that. I know I've seen these charts in other books. Graphing true count versus house edge. Just run simulations. It's that simple.
Run simulations?
Yeah, just for example, here's the way I would do it is I would randomly shuffle a deck, go through a whole shoe, go through it, and then make an array, make a 2-dimensional array, one way being the true count, and the other way being the the other way you could just have how often you've seen that true count and how much money the player won or lost. And if, through billions of hands, you would see clearly that the higher the true count, the better the player does. And it's a very linear relationship, except when you get really extreme counts that you don't even see very often.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I got on that one.
So what is that last form question that you have?
Oh, let's go to another one. You've remarked that it's really hard to come up with a successful new table game. Are there any games you've seen that you thought would be huge hits, but they failed? I'd like to think that the two games I invented were pretty clever, but neither of those got very far.
I wish it would, because that one game was fun.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I really enjoyed playing that.
But let me think. There was one game that they had at, I think it was the Flamingo, where it was like Blackjack, but the object was to get to 11, not 21. And I thought that was a pretty clever game. I thought that it might appeal to the same kind of people that like face-up Pai-Gow poker, where the strategy, I think the borderline hand was a 6, whether to hit or not. But so the strategy was really easy, and it was so fast. It was simple to deal, simple to explain to players. On the check mark, on the list of things that make a good game, it had everything right. But what can I say? The Flamingo pulled it out. I guess it didn't do too well. But it also goes to show you that even with a great game, you need to baby it for like a year, and you need to beg people to put it in your casino. And just one field trial really isn't enough, because they'll probably put it at bad shifts with bad dealers. So I think plenty of good games never got far just because they didn't get a good enough chance to grow.
Do you think COVID is going to make it a lot harder for those table game inventors to get their game in the casino?
From what I'm hearing from game inventors, no one in casino management even wants to talk about that right now. They are still trying to concentrate on just keeping the ship running steady. And there's still a lot of challenges with getting things reopened. So it's a bad time to be a game inventor.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing on our end too. So next question. Can you get an advantage in Baccarat? And if so, are you also able to get an advantage in a Baccarat tournament? Or use that advantage in a Baccarat?
Okay, we had a similar question last week. Let me say that the way people generally play, there's no way to get an advantage like tracking the dragon tails and the whole patterns between player and banker. Total waste of time. If you had no legal or moral objections to using a computer and you track every single card in the deck, you can sometimes get an advantage on certain bets very late in the shoe. But this would be illegal in Nevada. But there's other ways like edge sorting, obscure things like that. But in tournaments, you can have a huge advantage over your other players. So the first point about any gambling tournament is the enemy is not the dealer. The enemy are the other players, and you need to play better than them. And in games where, like in Blackjack, where you have to, say, advance in your table, it doesn't matter how much chips you have at the end. It just matters that you have the most. And so it's critical to go after whoever is ahead of you and to not be afraid to use your ammunition. if you do lose, you should go down with no money at all, because at least you will have used all your ammunition to try to win that fight. So with correct tournament strategy, which I could talk all day about, I think that you can have at least 3 times the chance of winning than the average recreational player. And yeah, so that is, I think, a very strong advantage play if you can get into these tournaments. But it's not as good as it used to be, because now casinos offer rebuys, which really depresses the value.
Okay, cool. Next question is from Shimmering Pilgrim. Since masks have been mandated by the Gaming Control Board, how do you notice a difference at the table games?
I haven't been to the casinos since they were remandated. In fact, Heather, can you even confirm this happened?
I can't. No, I haven't heard anything about that. From what I hear, players are not wearing masks, and the union's really upset about that, and they're trying to get it so it is mandatory for players and guests to wear masks. But I guess last I heard, they were still, having trouble with it, and they were still arguing about it.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. I was at the Palace Station like 5 days ago, and you hardly saw any masks. So
we can't confirm that?
I can't really answer it because I haven't been to a casino since this allegedly changed.
Okay.
Throw out a kind word to Caesar's Palace, as I heard that they are randomly walking around the casino and giving people, I think, $25 in free play if they're playing a machine and wearing a mask.
I heard that. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Yeah. So our next one is from US Paper Games, and he wants to know if you have seen the movie Cube. It is his favorite math movie. So what do you think of the movie?
I like it. It wouldn't make my top 100, but I still liked it. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a movie where it starts out and you have like a group of people in like a cell, and it's kind of like a puzzle to how to escape it. Ooh. And there's always a way to escape it, and there's always a way to get killed. Ooh. And but if you escape it, then you just go to another cell, and it's like, and the movie starts out where you're just going from cell to cell, but it turns out that the whole thing is like a huge 20 by 20 by 20 cube of cells, and the object is to escape the whole thing. And I don't want to ruin the ending or anything, but yeah, it was a really interesting movie, and I think there was a sequel to it too.
It sounds sort of like Saw, that thriller movie Saw, where they same thing. It's escape room type stuff, and if you don't escape, you're gonna die.
I haven't seen that, so I can't make any comparison. Okay. But yeah, I definitely like Cube. I should really rewatch it because I don't remember the details that well, and I'm sure I would appreciate a second viewing.
So my question is, what is your favorite math movie?
I'm definitely not going to say Good Will Hunting, because as good as a movie that was, the math problem in that movie was really easy, and they still didn't solve it right. Okay, this is probably not going to be what you're expecting.
Okay.
But I'm going to say, what was the name of that movie? What was there? Mean Girls, yeah.
And I've never seen that.
It's not a math movie.
No, I've never seen it. I should watch it.
I'm not saying that everyone is going to like this movie, but the climax of the movie, at the risk of giving away anything, involves a math problem.
Oh, okay.
And the way it was asked and solved was correct, and it was a difficult problem. And I was really impressed. If Good Will Hunting can't get the math right, my expectations for Mean Girls was not that high, but they nailed it. They nailed the math exactly. And I think Tina Fey was the writer of that movie. So all due compliments to her for good presentation of a calculus problem in that movie. And even besides that, it's a good movie. Cool. So yeah.
Well, in that case, I guess I know what I'm watching later.
Yeah, Mean Girls, highly recommended. And I'm tough to please with comedies. And this movie is a good combination between a drama and a comedy.
Okay, cool. So our next question is from Jim, and he says, you have a very nice Corona beard, Mike.
Thanks.
Do you put any beard oil in it, or do you do any maintenance to it? And he has been growing his beard since March.
I do. I got some beard oil, and I put that on once in a while. I often forget to. And I have some special beard, like a shampoo. And my mother also gave me some aloe vera cream. So yeah, I try to keep it moist. And you have to comb it a lot because the facial hair is curly and it can easily get tangled in itself. So,
do you have a
just before the show, I had Mrs. Wizard trim the mustache because otherwise the hairs will touch your lip and it tickles. So yeah, I can see why most men don't have beards. They require maintenance and might not. Yeah. So I'm not going to keep this forever, but it's an interesting change.
Do you have a mustache? Do you have a mustache comb?
No, I don't see why a regular comb isn't.
Use a normal hairbrush?
A
normal hairbrush or just like a comb, like a white tooth comb?
A hair comb.
Okay.
If I'm supposed to be using a mustache comb, I'm all ears as to why.
Okay, cool. Do we have any more forum questions?
Yes. Let's see. Okay. This looks like the last one. In your most recent cutting edge video, you examined a poker game utilizing a deck with the 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s removed. What are your thoughts on using such a deck? Do you find it interesting, gimmicky, confusing to players? And then there's another question. But to answer that one first, I am not crazy about games with a depleted deck. I've seen them before. They've never caught on. So I think that players will sit down and play the game, and they will really get killed in terms of the strategy because they will probably still have the mindset of a full deck and not realize that really good hands come along all the time in a depleted deck game. So everything else about that game that I mentioned, I think was called Lucky 6+ Vegas Hold'em or something like that. It was basically Texas Hold'em bonus, but with the depleted deck. And the depleted deck was the only thing I didn't like about the game, but that's a big issue. And I would recommend to nobody to try a game with a depleted deck. People like the normal 52 card deck, so that's what they're used to. That's what they're kind of have a natural feeling for. So that's what I would stick with. And I'm not crazy about jokers either, but games have succeeded that had jokers, so that's not a total game killer. And then he had a second part two, which was, what are your, this was Gilles Mir, by the way. And by the way, thanks, G. G always records the topics we talk about that I copy and paste into the video description. So,
oh, cool.
Big thank you there. Okay, what are your and Heather's favorite types of strange phenomena, such as ghosts, ESP, space aliens, Bigfoot? Note you need not actually believe in the phenomenon. So I am real big on space aliens and robots. And I just love, I won't say I love every movie, but I generally, so many of my favorite movies are either based on robots or space aliens, usually robots. Like one of my favorite movies of recent years is Ex Machina, about a robot. And I love the whole show, um, Black Mirror, which has a lot of robots in that. And I think that if I could go into the future 1,000 years, we'd either all be dead or we'd have all these robots for slaves. So, and I also, yeah, and I also strongly believe that there are many planets in the galaxy that are not just capable of forming life with no outside help, but capable of developing intelligent life. And I think it's entirely possible that we may have had a scenario like that was proposed in the movie Prometheus, where basically an intelligent human-like life form came to Earth and kind of seeded it with their own species, but it evolved differently because the gravity and whatnot is different on Earth. So it's entirely possible we may have evolved from aliens. I'm not saying we have, but I'm not saying we have not either. So,
You're not saying it was aliens, but it was aliens. Have you seen that meme?
yeah, I have.
I love that meme.
but yeah, I'm not saying I believe this, but neither do I disbelieve it, that maybe there are aliens out there right now, like going around doing good deeds and appearing like humans. Who knows? But I definitely think that there's more of a chance of that being actually true than like any given mainstream religion. Yeah. So there's my opinion. Your turn, Heather.
So fake stuff. My favorite fake stuff is I love dragons. I'm really big into fairies and mermaids and unicorns and Pegasus and all the girly shit. So yeah, that's it. And I like fantasy books, so that's probably where I get all that stuff from. And my favorite kind is where they take those elements and then it's something totally different than what people expect, and I love that. So dragons.
Okay. Dragons. So were you a big Game of Thrones fan?
Yes. And until the last season, I was really upset about that.
Okay. Don't tell me about the last season.
Okay. I won't tell you. But on that same topic, what are some book recommendations you may have?
In what kind of genre?
Any genre. Pick a genre. What's your favorite genre?
Let me think. I tend to read a lot of nonfiction books about math or science. Nothing really jumps out at me as like a book that's way better than all the rest.
Okay.
Let me look at my bookshelf right here to see if anything jumps out at me. Well,
I was recently reading Lev Grossman, I think it is, and he does magicians. And I just read the graphic novel Alice's Story. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
Does it refer to Alice in Wonderland?
No, it refers to a character named Alice in there, but her entire story, the whole graphic novel, is basically season 1 and season 2 of the TV show. So I thought it was pretty interesting seeing the comparisons.
I'm reading a book right now. I think I lost it, but oh shoot! Like now I can't even remember the title of it. Yeah, let's just skip. That's all I have on the books question. I know it's not a very good answer.
So our next question is from Big Boy. I was wondering, with the cards being dealt face up, does it give better odds by observing the hands in Ultimate Texas Hold'em?
It doesn't help very much, and I wouldn't pay attention to that unless you know how to use the information. And The only place that I think that has been discussed is in James Grosjean's second book. So yeah, I I have played before the pandemic where players just openly showed their cards to the other players, and I found it like hanging myself, because let's say that I had a what's a good example, like king five offsuit, which normally you would make the big raise on. But let's say I saw another player have a king and another player had a five in his hands. I would think, well, it's less likely for me to pair up, and since it's a borderline hand, I'm going to check it. And then two kings pop up on the flop, something like that. I guess I would, yeah, and I would just kick myself. So, yeah, it's not, yeah. So again, it's not, even if you know what to do, it doesn't really help you that much. And if you don't, I would, yeah, I would try to not tempt yourself with making strategy deviations based on that information.
Sounds good. Good information. Good advice. So our next question is from Blade Runner. Do you completely trust the integrity of the dice and or the tables that are not magnetically charged at the craps table?
I'm not sure I get the exception about the magnetically charged part, but I absolutely trust that the cards and dice are fair, at least here in Nevada, and probably at any respectable casino in the United States. I think that there's, if a casino were even tempted to cheat, there would be such a huge downside and such a small upside that the casinos don't need to cheat. They have the odds strongly in their favor to begin with. So why take any chances getting caught cheating just to increase that advantage even more?
Exactly. Very good. Very well put.
And some people, there's kind of an urban legend that the casinos use magnets to control the way the dice land in the craps table. I absolutely don't believe that at all.
Yeah, no, they don't. I've been working as a dealer. I've gone under the tables. There's no magnets. There's just wood. I've seen, late at night when it's graveyard shift and they're working on the tables, because that's the perfect time to work on it. There's just wood. It's wood. Yeah. It's pad foaming, and you have the layout on top of it, and that's all there is.
Yeah, and it's come up on my forum so often whether or not the automated craps games like Bubble Craps cheat, and I firmly believe that they do not. Yeah. But there's a conspiracy theory for everything.
So our next question is from John. Why are the buffalo machines so popular, and what's the next popular slot animal?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's kind of mysterious why some slot machines just take off, just do really well, and other ones don't. Mm-hmm. And as someone who designs slot machines myself, I get asked this all the time. And I think it ultimately is not so much the buffalo itself, but there's just something about the way, with the graphics and the sound and the pacing of the game, that just gets players in that kind of mental state that they are playing to get into, that it's just kind of hypnotic. And for whatever reason, some games achieve that better than others. That's my theory. And my advice to, say, a slot manager would be, or a slot machine company, would not be to obsess over that too much, but just keep trying, and know that not every game is going to be a success. In fact, most of them won't be. And it's just a percentages game. You just got to try different things, and hope that some of them are successful, and just replace the games that don't do well. So anyway, it's time for the musical interlude of the show.
Sounds good.
So let's make this Name That Tune. Let's see who is the first audience member to get it. So this is kind of a familiar tune.
So if you know this,
slowly,
write it in the comments.
Yep. Let me start over. I blew that. Did anyone get it?
No, no one's said anything in the comments just yet. I'm watching. Nothing yet. So if you know that tune, put it in the comments.
I see somebody mention the movie Pi.
Uh-huh.
That was a kind of an interesting movie, but it didn't actually have a whole lot to do with pi. So
Yeah.
I'm going to count that as a math movie.
We also have a joke in here too.
Yeah.
Why do card players lose with a short deck? Because they're not playing with a full deck. Ha ha. Wah wah.
Yeah, I see somebody agrees with me about Prometheus. Wasn't that a great movie? They've already had one sequel, which is also outstanding, Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
But I've heard there's going to be a third one.
Okay.
They were always meant to be like a trilogy of those.
Pretty cool.
I love the whole Alien series. So I'm not seeing the correct answer here. I think you guys are maybe too young.
Do you know we have? Oh, here we go. Is it Shenandoah?
Shenandoah? No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a theme show. Bridget Turner. Yes, it is a theme show to a television show from the 70s.
Oh, so we got a clue.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know the answer, please post it.
So I see Joey asks, have you watched the Big Bang Theory show? If so, what do you think of the maths on the whiteboards? It was supposed to be done by a mathematician or scientist. Oh, I love the Big Bang Theory, one of my favorite shows. The math and science on that was really strong. Like, you could tell that they had technical writers for that show that that wrote things that the kinds of things a mathematician would say that probably a normal sitcom writer would not know of. And yeah, on the whiteboard on that show, it was always something new, and it was always very cryptic, and they never like stopped. But but I did hear exactly what you said, that it was like an honor to be able to write something on the whiteboard for a particular episode.
That's cool.
So
very cool.
I think a good plot line though would have been if one of them got interested in gambling, but that never happened. There was an episode where they went to Vegas, but there was no gambling involved in it.
Yeah. So one of the guesses is was it Grizzly Adams?
Nope.
Okay. Was it the Mary Tyler Moore Show?
Nope.
And last one, was it Bonanza?
Nope.
Oh, nope. Okay. So we still haven't gotten the answer. We do have another question. What is one of the biggest gambling fallacies or gambler fallacies that you've seen in a casino?
I think the biggest one is literally called the gambler's fallacy, that if an event has not happened for a while, it becomes overdue. Absolutely not true. What can I say? I've been talking about this for over 20 years. But in games of independent trials like roulette, the past just does not matter. That ball does not have a memory.
Yeah, and as a dealer, we saw a lot of players who had that same fallacy. Oh my God, look at all the red. Black's got to hit.
Yeah,
What?
and I love how casinos now give you this information on a silver platter.
Yeah.
They tell you all the latest roulette spins and which are the hot and cold numbers over the last 100, and the Baccarat scoreboards tell you everything. And
Well,
they do this because it doesn't actually help the player, but they think it does.
it helps the casino because it helps increase their profits. When they installed those boards, they saw an increase in profits, and it's because of the gambler's fallacy, because they were able to see that information.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't blame them. I would do the same thing.
Yeah. We have another question. Do any casinos hold anything against you for telling people basic strategies or the math of the game that lowers the house edge?
Yeah, I've noticed they don't like it. I don't think that they dislike it for mathematical reasons, but I think that they consider it rude to tell people how to play their hands. And I would agree with them on that. I think that it is rude to give unsolicited advice at the table, but it's happened all the time that players ask me how to play a difficult hand. And in that case, I'm happy to tell them, and I've never had an objection from the dealer as long as I did it in a discreet way.
Cool. That's good. At least
in my younger days, I was a little more aggressive about giving advice, and yeah, the dealers definitely didn't like it.
Do you have any stories that stick out in your head, or anything like crazy happened in the casino when you were younger?
Yeah, as I've lamented many times, I don't have very many good gambling stories. I remember, I probably told this story before, but when I was 21, I think my first few trips to Vegas and Laughlin, I just played basic strategy. And then a friend of mine in college said, "Oh, you should learn how to count cards." And he gave me a book, Lawrence Revere's Playing Blackjack as a Business. And so I read that, and I learned one of the more difficult strategies in that book, Revere's advanced point count. And I studied all this in Santa Barbara, where there were no casinos. And I taught myself completely, entirely by myself, how to count cards without ever entering a casino to practice. And then, one day I felt, I'm ready. I think I can keep up with the speed of the game, and I have all the index numbers memorized. And I saw this ad in the Santa Barbara newspaper that basically advertised a junket for a free flight to Reno for 8 hours, as long as you were at least a $5 player. And so I signed up, and sure enough, they flew a whole plane load of people to Reno. And then as soon as you got off the plane, there was a bus that took you to the Boomtown Casino. And the first 4 hours I was playing, I was just winning like crazy. I must have been 3 standard deviations up. My stacks of chips just kept growing and growing and growing. And then, but I was getting hungry, so I took a break for lunch. And when I left, the other players saying, "Why are you leaving? You're so hot." But I said something like, "I don't believe in luck. My odds will be the same when I get back," which is true. But when I got back, everything just crashed down equally as fast.
Yeah.
But for a minute there, when during lunch, I thought, "Wow, this is just such an easy way to make money." I think I found my calling here, but that. So.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
like you did.
So that's my gambling story of the show.
Awesome. And while you were doing that, we had a couple guesses for the song you were playing. Was it High Smoke?
No.
Was it Gunsmoke?
Nope.
Was it Little House on the Prairie?
Yay! Little House on the Prairie.
You got a winner.
Rags Poker.
Awesome. Cool.
Yep.
Congratulations on winning.
Yes.
Nice.
There you go.
Very cool. Good job. Very nice.
Yes, good job, Rags. Okay, well, I see that brings us to 4 o'clock. Are there no new questions, but any old ones?
Well, we only have one question left, and that's the last one. Did
Mhm.
you ever exclude yourself from a casino before?
No, why would I do that? If
And
I
that's
didn't like that casino, I just wouldn't go there. And I certainly don't think I have any gambling addiction that I would need to self-exclude myself.
okay. And
So,
that's the last question.
okay.
So
Well, thanks, audience, for participating and showing up. And thanks, Heather, for putting this on and being my co-host.
thank you.
And
And
by the way, love the earrings.
thank you very much. Thank you for getting them. And also, too, I hope you have a great time the next couple weeks. So,
Thanks. Okay, so I'll see you guys in yeah, 2 weeks
July
from Thursday.
sounds good.
Okay. Bye,
Have
Heather.
a
Bye,
good one.
audience.
Bye, everyone. See ya.